There could be a major development in the already tense relationship between President Obama and Israel's leadership. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry joins us tonight from the North Lawn with the full story. Hi, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. When I pressed Josh Earnest today, he left the door wide open to the possibility of the U.S. issuing sanctions against Israel over settlement activity. Now, privately, I'm hearing this would not be similar to the kinds of tough sanctions that have been leveled against the economies of Russia and Iran, perhaps sanctions that would be more symbolic, trying to get Israel's attention. But obviously, it would still be unprecedented and could make an already tense relationship with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even worse after I asked Earnest to deny reports out of Israel that these sanctions are on the table. Listen.
We believe that settlements are illegitimate, and we have deep concerns about highly contentious planning and construction activities that the Israeli government is pursuing in East Jerusalem and the West Bank.
Now, Earnest would not deny the sanctions are on the table. He added that none of this is affecting the U.S. support for Israel's defense. But Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte called this whole idea absurd, adding, quote, protecting the national security interests of the United States requires strategic and moral clarity and an ability to distinguish between friends and adversaries. We should not confuse Israel, our closest and most reliable ally in the Mideast, with an adversary that needs to be pressured or coerced. All of this coming, this tension, just hours after the president tried to steady his national security team.
After already burning through 3 defense secretaries, President Obama had trouble landing a new one. So as he unveiled Ashton Carter as his nominee, the president alluded to how hard it was to sign someone up to deal with so many national security crises.
Ash is a big Motown fan. And one of his favorites is a classic by the Four Tops, Reach Out, I'll Be There. So, Ash, I'm reaching out to you. You have been there for us, our troops.
One person not there today, outgoing Pentagon Chief Chuck Hagel, even though White House officials were expecting him. Hagel aides tried to downplay any tension by saying he wanted the spotlight to be on Carter, who moved quickly to try and prove he'll be his own man.
I pledge to you my most candid strategic advice. And I pledge also that you will receive equally candid military advice.
Though Carter has no military experience, many Republicans today praised his civilian service at the Pentagon, even as they raised sharp questions about whether he'll be steamrolled by White House aides like Susan Rice, who clashed with Hagel.
If you go through 4 secretaries of defense, or 3 in 6 years, maybe you ought to be looking at yourself instead of the secretaries.
The stakes for the next secretary could not be higher, as the president met today with Jordan's King Abdullah, who has likened the struggle against ISIS to World War III.
We recognize it's a long-term and extremely complex challenge.
Retired generals say the president has curtailed the power of his defense secretaries, 2 of whom wrote books critical of his leadership, though there are high hopes for Carter.
I think what the senior uniform leaders are hoping is that because of how he operates, because of his thoughtfulness and the power of his mind, that he will be more persuasive with the White House technocrats.
There may be yet another crisis brewing as officials left the door open to U.S. sanctions against Israel over settlements.
So very clearly you're not denying that sanctions are on the table against even an ally.
I'm very clearly not denying that we have strong concerns about settlement activity that's underway in Israel.
Now, I pressed Earnest on why the U.S. may sanction an ally in Israel while the president is demanding Congress not issue more sanctions against Iran. He said the administration has previously been tough on Iran and is not going to detail its private conversations about what it might do to Israel. Brett?
And after that briefing, so far, no response from the Israelis.
We reached out to the Israeli embassy. It was already closed here in D.C. We've been trying to reach out to the Israeli government. They've previously said in recent days in the Israeli media that they're picking up reports that U.S. officials were having classified meetings recently discussing this possibility of sanctions. The government not happy about it.
Well, the briefing was telling. Ed, thank you.
Today, President Obama nominating Ashton Carter to lead the Pentagon, and then a statement from Senator McCain saying, I hope that Dr. Carter fully understands he will likely have limited influence over the tight circle around the president, who apparently control the entire strategic decision-making process. As former Secretaries Bob Gates and Leon Panetta recently suggested, the next Secretary of Defense may also be subject to incessant micromanagement by the White House on a level not seen since the Vietnam War. And joining us, Representative Aaron Schock. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta. Good to be with you.
Nice, David. Well, that certainly seemed like a warning from Senator McCain to the nominee.
Well, it is. I think it's a wake-up call to not only the nominee, but also to the American people that not Bob Gates, not Leon Panetta, not even his former colleague in the Senate, Chuck Hagel, could work with this president or run the Pentagon because of the level of micromanagement that all of these fine men experience coming from the White House, from the president, from Valerie Jarrett, from people in the White House with no military experience, but who constantly second-guessed and micromanage the Defense Department. And certainly at a time of war, it's even more dangerous to have that level of micromanagement going on. And I think the one comfort we can take as Americans is that we finally have a qualified individual leading the Senate Armed Forces Committee. And I take great confidence in the fact that Senator McCain will finally be chairing that committee, who will be overseeing the appointment process of the Defense Secretary. And for the first time in 6 years, this White House will finally get the level of scrutiny it needs over the Defense Department.
Well, it strikes me as that we've had one Attorney General since the beginning, and we're now about to be on number 4 Secretary of Defense. We've had 2 Secretaries of State, but we're certainly going through a lot of Secretaries of Defense. I don't know if that says anything, but it's noted.
Well, I think it tells you that the President and the senior advisors don't want to be the Attorney General, but they all apparently like to play Secretary of Defense.
All right, let me move to another topic, and this is really stunning, is that there are reports that the White House, the Obama administration, is having discussions about whether or not to sanction Israel, whether there are sanctions on Israel because of their settlements.
You know, this is something that, is beyond shocking. I mean, when I first heard this, I thought, you've got to be kidding me. You can't make this stuff up. It's par for the course. This is clearly a president who wants to go it alone, whether it's running the Defense Department himself or whether it's deciding sanctions on foreign countries, something that Congress historically has taken up. Congress has voted in a bipartisan vote that we support sanctions against Iran, who is the great threat in the Middle East. But Israel is one of our greatest allies in the Middle East. And so whether the president had any serious desire to sanction Israel or not, just the mere investigation of this possibility and then the leaking of this possibility is harmful to our relationship to them and throws into question for our enemies who we are.
You know, it's really quite stunning, though, but the relationship between the president and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, has been described as terrible. And then you've got the situation, if you dial it back a little bit, remember when President Obama was speaking to then President of France, Sarkozy, and he was very insulting, President Obama and Sarkozy, about Prime Minister Netanyahu. I mean, our relationship is really deteriorating with Israel.
You're right. And it's no secret that the president does not respect the elected leader of Israel. And that's unfortunate. He's disrespected him in public, in the meeting in the Oval Office. He's disrespected him with other world leaders. But that is no excuse to unilaterally attempt to sanction one of the greatest allies that our country has in a very fragile part of the world.
Congressman, thank you, sir.